Godfather being turned into the Goodfather made the right to censor what it was.
Here's the one that really, because as a fan, I'm 13 years old. I love The Godfather because of everything he brought. And what I'm saying is, he brought all the women, he brought the fun, he brought the party to every single show. He had a great spot on the card. He loved being The Godfather because it matched his personality. You might disagree with his personality slightly, but at times. But anyway, The Godfather gets drafted in. So we believe that it's a very clever mechanism to get the most raunchy characters off TV while they basically protest about it at the same time. It's a very, very clever way that Right to Censor was used by the WWF. And obviously Val Venus at the same time. He'd already given up the adult film star character.
But he was known for it no matter what. He needed another gimmick to erase that even further. People still think of him that way, so we needed to switch both of them up.
Well, he's another one with like.
Well, I say we. I had nothing to do with it. By the way, that's part of what you're probably going to get into. I had nothing to do with this. I didn't even know if I was going to be there much longer.
Well, with Val, he becomes, Val, and then we'll talk about Val in a minute anyway. But with Godfather, he makes it known he's not happy about, in real life, joining the Right to Censor. He becomes the Goodfather. And with Chris Van Vliet, he makes mention of the fact that basically I was not nice to Stevie. I was unhappy with my spot. I was unhappy with the creative direction. And elsewhere, he also says that he was preparing to quit over this. He told The Undertaker that he was preparing to quit. And apparently, in another interview, he said that he and Bull Buchanan were made tag team champions in an effort to keep him with the company longer. That's how strongly he felt, and that's how much he was not enjoying the role. So, The Godfather, I suppose, thoughts about The Godfather before he joins Right to Censor, and then issues dealing with him when he's forced to join the group.
First of all, unique personalities are needed in professional wrestling, whether you care to mesh or jive with the personality, which I had no problems with him as the Godfather before that. Of course, I wasn't in the Right to Censor, and then all the other stuff didn't happen. Now, I'm going to take a completely different perspective on this. Obviously, I was made well aware by actions, looks, words, inflection, every hint in the book without actually saying, I do not want to be part of this group. I do not want to be a part of anything you have to do. It was seemingly at the time, it was a very personal type of thing. And I think in that interview with Chris Van Vliet, that's what he said. He took it out on me. I had nothing to do with it. I didn't invent the Right to Censor, and it was on Vince. He said in the interview he had to blame somebody, and it was me. Now, I'm going to take this perspective from a purely business standpoint. Imagine if you're one of the biggest baby faces in the company, where people have argued with me, no, he wasn't. Yes, he was. A perennial baby face with the same exact spot on the card, with almost the same predictable thing that people would never get tired of seeing week in and week out. That's one of the most over baby face. He didn't need to evolve. Just every he mentioned the town, might mention the local strip club, brought out the local girls from that strip club, and that's it. Formula for success. Now, from a business standpoint, and here's what I talked about before, as a baby face, you have an entire multiple stream of income potential, not just from getting booked, which obviously if you're over as a babyface, you're getting booked on TVs, house shows, live events, and pay-per-views. You're getting booked. You're automatically making more money when you're figured in to a spot. By the way, he doesn't even have to wrestle. So on a TV spot or a pay-per-view or even a house show, it doesn't eat up a ton of time on your show. And you can do it each and every week, and people will look forward to it. And once again, just like with Meanie, you need to have some fun. And I'm sorry I took that fun away from you, James. You need to have some fun and have some comic relief and just not take it so seriously, at least for a few minutes. Now, on the side of the business standpoint, where outside of the bookings, outside of being featured, because he was featured as a heel, he was the most, if I dare say, Val was one thing. Godfather being turned into the Goodfather made the right to censor what it was. If I didn't convert him, quote, because I didn't do it, don't blame me. If he wasn't converted, it would not have the power nor the impact on the WWE or WWF at the time if he didn't. We would just be shouting, we'd be an angry old man shouting at the clouds, but turning the most over sexualized babyface, let's call it, into a Bible thumping Jehovah's Witness or Mormon is what made it. So he was the most important part of the right to censor, in my opinion. But getting back to the business standpoint and the money that the right to censor probably cost this guy, merchandise. He was in some video games, but you didn't know that was going to happen. Action figures, t-shirts, whatever Ho Train stuff they sold, he had to be in the top 5 merch sellers. So it pained the company, I bet, too, to take a loss that way, to take one of their most popular baby faces and remove all the merchandise and remove all the extra money that the company and Godfather would make. So you have a mortgage, you have a car payment, you have bills to pay. I don't know if he has kids. He might have been married. I'm not familiar with his personal life, but he has financial responsibilities that now your pay is potentially cut, maybe on a good month or a good year, cut in half. Who are you going to take it out on? Can't take it out on Vince McMahon. So I think he was just projecting his anger, frustration, the financial hit he took. And he was basically paired up, or we were joined at the hip for the whole right to censor stuff until the end. So I'm right there. I'm right next to him here. What are you going to do? So I understand. Was it a fun time? No. Life was miserable. Life sucked. The job sucked. Being in the locker room sucked because it wasn't just him. The people that were connected to him and really good friends were also making passing remarks and stuff. You know how wrestling is. It's a high school cafeteria. So that's fine. I understand. And in my mind, and did it hurt? Of course it did. It immensely hurt me. Who wants to be disliked at the time? I'm sure I gave reasons here and there throughout my career, but who wants to be disliked for something that is no fault of your own? And there was nothing at the time, even if I was absolutely aware of it, or he told me, I don't want to be here and it's your fault, I'm losing money, or he never said any of those things. It was a very quiet heat, but I knew it. And what could I have said to him to make it better? Nothing. So it probably was the I don't know, the less stressful part. It was just the quiet heat throughout the entire year.
We'll go back to the creator in a second. It was hard for me as a fan to sort of accept that. There was such a dissonance between what he was and what he became within the space of probably 3 days, probably between Raw and SmackDown. I always wonder that, and obviously we're just rebooking the past that can't happen, but I always wonder what if you were the antagonist and he was the protagonist throughout this kind of thing? Because it would have elevated Godfather at the same time. I don't know, but I mean, you're of the opinion that no, Godfather joining made the right to censor more important.
Well, we did dip in and out where, when we put Victoria through the table, I was before Victoria and Stevie on Stevie Night Heat. So it's funny how a small world. But he was hesitating, and then he would say, let me do it. But then there was parts in that Wrestling Bios documentary. By the way, that guy, his editing skills, please teach me your editing skills. When we, when we closed the APA office down and Godfather was tempted to smoke the cigar. I love that. Why is it always it's literally, you can see now there's a bit of Stockholm syndrome. There's brainwashing involved. There's that cult. I wanted that. I wanted Val to be walking by a magazine stand and we see an adult magazine and he kind of gravitates toward. I wanted all that. That's always good to mix it up and show if we cheer even more from him, he's going to turn back into the Godfather. That was but they wanted that to be very, very few and far between. They were pretty stringent on, once again, PTC. If you show any inkling of the character consistently, they're probably going to protest once again because they know you're bringing them back. So they had to be very careful.
Speaking of coming back, The Godfather, and actually Val Venus at the same event, but we'll talk about Val, as I say, shortly. Royal Rumble 2002, which for me is a dark pay-per-view because it was the very first one that actually was a pay-per-view in this country. And then they started bringing in the pay because they were all free. They were on Sky Sports, premium subscription thing, but they were all free for us. And then they started bringing the Royal Rumble and very slowly over the next few years making them all pay-per-views. He's brought back, and then he's gone legit in 2002, quote unquote. He's now an escort instead of a pimp, I guess. Not an escort, but he runs an escort agency. It was never the same, and I always find that quite weird. How just that tiny little just change in character that now he's legit, and it just never had quite the same sting to it. It never hit quite as hard. But I also think maybe it was 2002. The invasion had happened, and it more or less just killed everyone. A third of the people stopped watching WWF programming across that 6 months as well. So maybe it was just.
Isn't it funny that the final dream of WCW versus WWE is about to happen, and it was like the biggest flop ever in wrestling history?
Awful. I hated it. But anyway, as I say, it's not about me. There's a couple of things about The Godfather that I want to bring up to you, as well as Victoria, I guess, as well. So he talks on the Chris Van Vliet clip about a slap story.
I heard in another interview you said that you took a lot of this out on Stevie Richards.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I did.
But I mean, no fault of his own.
None of his. I haven't seen him since then. But if I ever see him, I'm not a bully. Believe me, I'm not a bully, but I wasn't nice to him. And I took it out on, I was in a bad place. I was in a real bad place, man, and I blamed him.
With the amount of conventions you're doing, signings you're doing, appearances you're doing, your paths are going to cross eventually.
Hey, I'm sure he's heard the story about me. I think he was in the...
We can FaceTime him after if you want. I have his number.
He probably doesn't. He might have just thought I was a dickhead, I don't know. But I'm not normally, but I was mean to him. I remember one time Shane was doing an interview. I think it had to do with Adam Sandler was in it, and and Shane was directing it, and Stevie Ray was supposed to smack me. And I told him, I'm like, you smacked me. And, I told him what I was going to do to him if he smacked me. And so he wouldn't slap me. And Shane kept getting so mad at him, but he never slapped me, man. But it was stuff like that. I took it out on him, and it was not his fault. It was just, I had to blame somebody, so I blamed Stevie.
Well, we did a backstage pre-tape with Adam Sandler with the Little Nicky movie where he played the devil. And we were cutting apart. Adam Sandler, he obviously didn't want to be there. I could tell. I didn't want to be there either. And Godfather, nobody wanted to be there. So it was just really, it's hard to deal with celebrities that aren't figured. Today it's easy because celebrities, they appreciate wrestling, the entertainment and respect. You see what Logan Paul and other people do, but then you got the occasional Jeremy Piven with Summerfest, which is awesome. He didn't want to be there. He's kind of doing whatever, promoting the movie. I'm trying to play my character. I don't know exactly what the provocation was for me to turn to Godfather or Goodfather at that time and give him a slap. It was directed and produced by Shane McMahon. Shane McMahon somehow was the agent for this in some way. I don't know how, but Shane did get, because Godfather pulled me aside, or he just turned back to them and looked right at me and he said, don't you hit me, or we're going to fight, or I'm going to hurt you or do whatever. And I'm like, okay, what do I do? I don't want to slap anybody anyway really hard. I don't like that because I've had my ears cupped a lot and had eardrums broken from like slaps that are sloppy. But Charles is a huge dude. Even my whole hand would probably be like right here. So he's a big dude. So I was doing it and I was trying to say to Shane, which was right. I mean, honestly, I'm like, okay, this guy wants to fight me. I'm being told, Shane's telling me to slap him. He's telling me not to. If I say he doesn't want me to slap him, now I'm stooging him off. If I tell that Godfather, well, Shane told me to slap, now I'm like in the middle. This encapsulates professional wrestling and politics and potential heat that you can't please anyone. You're damned if you do. You're damned if you don't. And you're damned if you do it real lightly. So Probably, I guess, 3 takes of doing it, and then Shane got so mad, he just kinda walked away, and it was a take, and that was it. And I remember just kind of walking away, my head was held down, and all I kept saying to myself is like, "What have I ever done to this guy? What did I ever do to this guy?" I kind of understood it, but you have to understand, looking at it years down the road with a different set of eyes, that's why I gave the answer I did today. But the answers I had back then were none, nil. Walking around all day, wonder why everybody is so pissed off. And people that have nothing to do with them, but might be connected, like, you're the person costing Godfather all this money. And I probably, if I was aware of it, this is the whole thing too. I probably would have said something and got 10 times more heat. Like, I probably would have said to Godfather, "Why are you mad at me? Vince is the one. I didn't want to cut my hair," which right then, you're mouthing off, you're talking back, you're disrespect. It could be any bunch of different ways where you get, and once I realized too, that early on, as I'm trying to remember it, that I'm like, okay, well, I'm smart enough to know politically that Godfather is tight and in a crew, whatever their name was at the time, with Undertaker, which means I'm instantly buried. If Godfather is balking at this, and even Val is starting to balk at this, and nobody is giving a counterpoint that this is a good thing to at least keep you here or whatever. I don't know which way they would have convinced them of that outside of giving them the tag title run and giving them more money on house shows, pay-per-views, stuff like that. But I did walk around for many, many years thinking to myself, what did I do wrong? How did I handle this wrong? Why does this guy hate me? Why does this guy hate me? Why are they not trying to do business? Why are they not selling? It was everything. Totally low point in my career. And that, if it's a segue, that kind of like led me to kind of feel sorry for myself and then go into the severe weight gain.
We never actually talked about the weight gain. We'll talk about it in just a second after this. Just reacting once more to the Godfather clip. Does it sort of relax you a bit more? Does it make you happy that obviously, Charles is showing, quite a lot of contrition? He doesn't actually get to the point where he says, "I'd love to shake his hand and apologize," but that's basically what he's saying. So when you see that and you sort of realize, oh, well, it wasn't me, it was everything surrounding the character. I mean, how did you take that?
I mean, I didn't walk around in 2022, 23, 24 wondering what the guy, whatever, I saw the interview and it gave perspective and clarity and answered questions. But at the same time, I mean, maybe it's one of those things where, he said all those things, but, didn't want to talk to me or shake my hand or do whatever. And that's fine. He doesn't need to apologize for anything. He had his very valid reasons, just wasn't clued into what those valid reasons were. Or maybe it's just, dude, in the wrestling business, I don't fit in. I'm not one of them. They've told me and showed me every day during my 31 years in the business, I do not belong in it. I do not fit in. I'm different. And that's fine, because being different and not fitting in will hopefully lead to this chapter and beyond of success outside of wrestling. Also, never fitting in always made me want to do more, work harder, keep myself hyper accountable after the weight loss. But I don't have any answers for that. I mean, if I saw the guy at a convention and he came up and we started talking, that would be fine. I'm not going to I don't hold any ill will to him. The only thing was that it became, in my opinion, at one point, which most wrestling is with backstage politics and heat and locker room stuff, just completely counterproductive and unnecessary to a point of whatever. But compared to how some people got hazed and some people got bullied, him leaving me alone and giving me silent heat, it's probably the better part of it. So I give him that. He didn't try to outwardly try to hurt me physically. He didn't outwardly try to do things to me outside the ring. He just stayed away from me and didn't want to have anything to do with me, which is fine.